Get ready for a journey into the deepest layers of the human soul. Today, instead of burning in the fire of anger, we are going to talk about how you can learn to swim in the cool waters of inner peace. Every one of us has felt that scorching emotion at some point in life, when we have been treated unfairly, misunderstood, or wounded by someone else's words. We have all felt that anger rising inside us. But what if I told you that the next time someone judges you, criticizes you, or acts as if you do not matter, you can actually feel real peace inside? Not indifference, and definitely not surrender. Just a deep calm that comes from within. Maybe you have heard this before, but Karl Jung whispers a wise secret to us here. What disturbs you most in others is often a whisper from your own soul, a part you still have not listened to. When you begin to see the world through his eyes, you discover a secret that can change you forever. You do not need anyone else to change in order to stop getting angry. You only need to learn how to look within. Have you ever felt yourself pulled into an emotional whirlpool? Even when you repeat to yourself again and again, "Don't take it personally," your chest still tightens, the words echo in your mind, and that uncomfortable fire rises in your throat. Why does that happen? Why do we so often react with anger, even toward people we barely know? According to Jung, the answer is not in them, but in our shadow self, in the parts of us we deny, suppress, or hide. And when we project those parts onto other people, that is when we explode. The most surprising part is this: once you understand those projections, you can reclaim your power. You no longer have to live a defensive life, and you can reach an inner freedom you may not even know exists. This is not just another motivational talk. This is a deep, realistic, human, and liberating journey through 15 lessons from Karl Jung that can help you leave anger behind and begin healing from the inside. So take a deep breath, because something very different begins now. Picture someone who has hurt you. It could be someone close to you. It could be a complete stranger. When you see that person in your mind, your whole body tightens. It feels as if they have the power to ruin your day. Right here, Jung would say, "What provokes you in others is the part of yourself you have not yet forgiven." That may sound like a provocative sentence, but it is not meant to blame you. It is an invitation to understand that anger is not born from the other person, but from an unresolved story inside you. So what happens when that story becomes active? What happens when someone touches a place in you that you have been avoiding? The ego reacts. It becomes defensive. It shouts, it judges, and that is the moment we lose our emotional freedom. It is as if, without realizing it, we have handed over control of our inner state to other people's behavior. Jung believed that to free ourselves, we must integrate our shadows. That means recognizing that when someone makes you feel anger, they may actually be revealing a part of you that needs attention, compassion, or transformation. And no, that does not mean the other person is right. It means you are taking back the power to choose how to respond instead of simply reacting. Jung once wrote, "Confronting yourself is confronting your own shadow." Isn't that a powerful truth? Because no one teaches us to look inward without fear. We are taught to point outside. We are taught to say, "He made me angry. She ruined my day. They drove me crazy." But we rarely ask why that person holds so much power over us in the first place. And that is the first great lesson. No one can pull you out of your center without your permission. But first, you have to find that center. And this is where the real spiritual work begins. This is not about becoming cold or suppressing what you feel. This is about discovering what Jung called the self, that deep place where your peace, wholeness, and wisdom live. Every time you choose to observe your anger instead of acting from it, you open the door to that place. Now, maybe you are asking yourself, what if someone disrespects me? How am I supposed not to get angry? The answer is not in ignoring what happens. The answer is in changing the place from which you look at it. Jung believed intense emotions are opportunities in disguise. When someone triggers your anger, they are showing you an inner button that can still be pressed. That may look like weakness, but it is actually a clue about your evolution. This is not about becoming passive. This is about choosing consciously. You can set boundaries without anger. You can say no without shouting. You can protect yourself without reacting. But for that, you have to learn how to tolerate the discomfort of looking within. One of the practices that helped Jung most was active observation. What does that mean? It means noticing your reaction, identifying the thought beneath it, and asking yourself, what part of me is being affected here? For example, if someone criticizes you and you feel wounded, maybe your sense of worth is still tied to outside approval. If someone ignores you and you feel invisible, maybe the child within you never received the validation they needed. And this is exactly where the alchemical work begins. The work that turns the lead of anger into the gold of self-knowledge. Of course, no one taught us how to do this. We were taught to endure, not to explode, to stay strong. But suppression is not healing, neither is exploding. Jung offers us a third path: understand, integrate, transcend. It is a slow path, yes, but it is the only path that gives you peace back without losing yourself. Because anger is not the problem. The problem is not understanding what is underneath it. And when you do not understand it, you project it onto everyone around you. Think about this. How many times have you gotten angry at someone over something small, only to realize later that you were actually tired, hurt, or stressed because of something else? Jung claimed that outer conflict is often the echo of unresolved inner conflict. And that is why, as long as you keep looking for the guilty party outside, you will keep losing control over your inner world. So, beyond this video, I invite you to observe your reactions. And if anything you hear disturbs you, ask yourself, why does this bother me? Because the power is in your hands. This is where it begins, where you stop blaming and start understanding, where you stop reacting and begin responding. This is emotional freedom. And if you are here, it means something inside you is ready to stop reacting with anger and start living with more peace. So if any sentence you hear touches your heart, write it in the comments. Choose one sentence you want to remember, one that feels like an anchor or a guide for you. When you write it, you are not only making it your own, you are also inspiring others who read it. When we share what is transforming us, we create community. So leave your comment now, and thank yourself for being part of this collective transformation. And now, let's continue with the first lessons from Karl Jung that can help you stop getting angry and start living with more presence, more clarity, and a deeper connection to yourself. Anger is not an enemy. It is a signal. Many people feel ashamed of being angry. When they lose control, they feel as if they have failed spiritually. But Jung did not see anger as something bad. He saw it as a messenger. The question is not, how do I stop being angry? The question is, what is my anger trying to tell me? Because every intense emotion is a sign from the soul that something needs attention.
Maybe you are betraying yourself. Maybe you are allowing other people to cross boundaries you have not defended.
Maybe you are carrying expectations that were never truly yours. So, when anger appears, the first thing you need to do is stop and listen. Because if you react without understanding, then you are not speaking from wisdom. You are shouting from a wound. What you project in the shadow always returns. Jung believed that what we deny in ourselves is what we see magnified in others. That person who annoys you because they seem arrogant, are they really that arrogant? Or are they triggering the confidence you buried because you were afraid of rejection? When you deny your shadow, the part of you that does not fit the image of who you think you should be, it reappears outside of you like a mirror. That is why you often get angry at someone you cannot control, because that person is showing you a side of yourself you do not want to face. Integrating the shadow is an act of humility. It means admitting that you are not only light, and that even the darkness contains wisdom. The people who disturb you most are often your deepest teachers. It is hard to accept, but Jung was clear. If someone can throw you off emotionally, that is not an accident. It is an invitation. Not to excuse their behavior, but to examine your own reaction. Why does this affect you so deeply? What fear, what pain, what old story is waking up inside you? Sometimes difficult people appear in our lives because our wounds need a mirror to come into the light. And until we stop rejecting those wounds, they will keep reappearing in different faces, in different bodies, in different situations. You stop attracting the same cycle only when you understand the lesson behind the conflict. So, instead of asking, "Why does this always happen to me?" begin asking, "What can I learn from this?" Feeling anger does not mean you have to act from it. One of the biggest mistakes we make is thinking that managing anger means either suppressing it or expressing it immediately. But Jung taught a third way, to hold it consciously. That means allowing yourself to feel the energy of anger in your body, the heat, the urge, the tension, while also observing it like a witness. This takes practice, but it gives you freedom. Because when you stop reacting automatically, you gain the chance to choose a response that matches who you truly are. You can set boundaries not from aggression, but from firmness. You can speak your truth without trying to wound someone. And that is emotional mastery. You cannot control anyone else, but you can guide yourself. Much of our anger comes from expecting other people to behave the way we would behave. Jung would say that we project our expectations onto others, and when they do not meet them, we feel betrayed. But the truth is, no one is here to fulfill our personal ideas of how they should be. Control is an illusion that feeds suffering. Once you realize that your only true responsibility is to yourself, to your peace, your energy, and your boundaries, you stop placing your well-being in someone else's hands. And that is where a real inner revolution begins. You do not need anyone else to change for you to be okay. What you do not heal, you repeat. Some people live trapped in the same types of relationships and the same kinds of conflicts over and over again. Jung believed the unconscious seeks healing through repetition, as if life keeps saying, "Here is the wound, here is the wound, here is the wound." And every time you react with anger, you strengthen the pattern. So when you begin to feel anger rising, pause and ask yourself, has this happened to me before? Who does this remind me of? What part of my story is repeating here? Awareness is the first step in breaking the cycle. Self-knowledge is the antidote to chronic anger. When you do not know who you really are, you define yourself by what other people think of you. So when they criticize you, ignore you, or reject you, you react. But if you have a deep connection with yourself, if you know your worth, your purpose, and your boundaries, then outside noise does not shake you as much. Jung spoke about individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are, beyond social, family, and cultural roles. The more you know yourself, the less reactive you become, because you no longer need to defend an image. You simply need to be. Silence is a powerful response. Not every conflict needs an immediate answer. Sometimes the wisest thing you can do is refuse to respond impulsively. Jung understood that time and silence reveal the truths hidden beneath emotion. When someone provokes you, the ego wants to answer, justify, correct, win. But the soul knows that not everything deserves your energy. Silence that comes from consciousness is not indifference. It is protection. It is knowing that your peace is more valuable than any argument. To love is also to set boundaries. Many times we become angry because we keep brushing aside behaviors that disturb us. And then one day, it all builds up and we explode. Jung taught that setting boundaries is not selfishness. It is emotional responsibility. Love does not mean allowing everything. Love also means saying, "This is not good for me. I will not accept this." And most importantly, those boundaries are not just for other people. They are also for you. Learning to set loving boundaries with yourself, not betraying yourself, not crossing your own signals, saves you from resentment and disappointment. Compassion dissolves judgment. When you get angry at someone, it is often because you are judging their behavior. But Jung reminds us that everyone carries a story, and no one acts entirely from wholeness. When you understand another person, when you look at them with compassion, even if you still need to walk away, you do it without carrying resentment. And that is a form of healing for you. Letting go of judgment does not mean excusing what is wrong. It means freeing yourself from the weight of carrying anger and choosing peace over drama. Karl Jung believed true spiritual growth does not come from denying emotion, but from transforming it. And that is exactly what you are doing here. You are learning to see anger not as a flaw, but as a doorway. A doorway into a deeper understanding of yourself. And once that door opens, you cannot close it again. Because you are not the same person anymore. You no longer give the same reactions. You no longer take everything personally. And that is the beginning of a new way of living. Have you noticed how far you can go just by observing your emotions instead of suppressing them or acting from them? If anything you heard today touched you, I invite you to write in the comments which of these lessons affected you the most, which one you connected with most deeply. And if you still have not done it, do not forget to leave the sentence you want to remember. Sharing your experience can help heal others too. By the time you have reached this point, something deep inside you may already be shifting. You are no longer just trying to control your anger. You are trying to understand it. You are ready to release it from the root, from the soul. And that makes you different from the majority. Because you are not running from your emotions. You are facing them and growing. Now let's continue with the final 5 lessons from Karl Jung that can help you stop getting angry and stop giving your energy away to anyone. You will not do this because you are perfect, but because you are becoming conscious. And real peace is born from consciousness. Your childhood was not your fault, but your healing is your responsibility. This is not an easy lesson to accept. Jung believed that much of the personal unconscious is shaped by what we lived through in childhood. Unattended wounds, abandonment, rejection, judgment, fear, all of it becomes the filter through which we interpret the present. So when someone ignores you today or makes you feel small, you are not only reacting to the present, you are reacting from the past. You are looking at the present through the eyes of a wounded child. And if you do not see that, if you do not work with it, you will keep getting angry at people who simply trigger your unconscious story. Jung reminds us that we cannot erase what happened, but we can choose what we do with it now. And the only way to stop projecting it is to make it conscious. Your emotional energy belongs to you. It is not a weapon for other people. We live in a society where many people use emotion as a tool of manipulation. They get angry to control. They play the victim to gain attention. They withdraw into silence to punish. But Jung was clear. When you use your emotional energy as a weapon, you are acting from the ego, not from the true self. Your anger is your responsibility. You do not have the right to dump it onto someone else like a punishment. You can feel it, yes. You can express it clearly, yes, but always from a place of self-regulation, never from emotional violence. If someone hurts you, you can speak from your center without losing your soul. That is one of the highest forms of spiritual maturity. Anger is not power. Real power is calmness. Sometimes we confuse shouting with strength, but Karl Jung spoke of the most transformative power as the energy of a calm soul. Anger is uncontrolled fire. Calmness is fire burning inside a temple. A person who has worked on themselves can say what they think without losing control. They can see when someone is being unfair and still choose to respond from their being rather than from reactivity.
That is the kind of strength that commands respect. Because the one who shouts loses authority, but the one who speaks calmly touches the heart. If you truly want to be heard, do not raise your voice. Raise your inner state. Sometimes what disturbs you is not only what others do to you, but what you keep allowing. Jung had a powerful idea. What you do not resist becomes your fate. This is especially true in relationships where you feel repeatedly hurt. Why are you still there? Why did you not say what needed to be said? Why are you tolerating what you clearly do not deserve? So often we get angry at other people for crossing boundaries we never actually set. But outer anger is often a distraction from inner anger. What truly hurts is not only what others do to you, but what you keep allowing to continue. And when you realize that, you do not blame yourself. You take responsibility. You look at yourself with compassion, and you begin acting in a way that is aligned with your dignity. The calm soul is not indifferent. It is free. Jung spoke of individuation as the process in which the soul becomes sovereign, no longer needing to react just to prove something, no longer getting trapped in empty arguments, no longer being ruled by what others think. A person who reaches this level is not cold, distant, or uncaring. They are free. Free from taking everything personally. Free from reacting out of trauma. Free from feeding drama. Free from staying where there is no peace. And that inner freedom allows you to look at any situation with calmness, even when it hurts, even when it is unfair. Because you know your energy is not for sale. Your calm is sacred, and your soul does not need to win an argument. It only needs to remain centered. And after hearing these 15 lessons, you are probably noticing something different inside yourself. Maybe your anger has not disappeared completely. Maybe there are still people who trigger you. But something has shifted. You now know that anger does not define you. You can observe it, listen to it, transform it. Karl Jung did not promise a life free from intense emotions, but he taught us how to live them with depth, courage, and truth. Because the soul did not come into this life to control everything. It came to awaken. And often, The spark of that awakening begins with a painful emotion. Now it is your turn. I invite you to write in the comments which of these last 5 lessons touched you most deeply. Which one you want to apply in your life. Which one showed you something you had never seen before. Do not just leave it in your mind. Write it. When you write it down, you affirm your transformation. And if this message helped you look at anger in a different way, share it. Maybe someone you know needs it. Or maybe you will need to come back to it yourself later. And if you have not already, subscribe to Quiet Psychology. Because here, we are creating a space where the soul can breathe, reflect, and grow. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for being part of this journey. And thank you for choosing peace. If you made it this far, something inside you is no longer the same. Maybe you cannot explain it with words, but you feel it. It is as if a sleeping part of you suddenly opened its eyes and something deep within has shifted. That part does not want revenge. It does not want to shout. It does not need to be right. It simply wants to understand, to heal, to grow, and to live in peace. And maybe, for the first time in a long time, you feel that this is actually possible. Maybe, for the first time, you understand that you do not have to live in conflict with everything. You do not have to argue over every word, step into every disagreement, or defend yourself against every criticism. Maybe, for the first time, you realize that true freedom is not changing the world. It is stopping your wounded places from reacting to it. Jung did not teach invincibility. He taught consciousness.
Because when you see your shadow and stop running from it, when you listen to your anger and stop denying it, when you dare to look honestly at what is really hurting you, something miraculous happens. You begin to choose. And that is the great difference between living from the ego and living from the soul. The ego reacts. The soul responds. The ego blames. The soul understands. The ego wants control. The soul seeks integration. So how do you apply all of this in everyday life? What does inner peace look like when the world challenges you, when people hurt you, when things do not go the way you expected? I want you to picture this scene. You are at work, at home, or with someone close to you. Someone speaks to you in an aggressive tone or accuses you unfairly. Before, you would have reacted instantly. Your body would tense, your mind would go into defense mode, and your words would fire out like bullets. But now something changes. You breathe. Not because you are weak, but because you know anger is not your master. It is your messenger. And when you pause like that, you create space. A sacred space. A space where you do not have to repeat the past. A space where you can look at the other person not as an enemy, but as a mirror. A space where you can ask yourself, what part of me is activated right now? Is this my adult self answering, or my wounded child? Is this my truth, or my programming? That moment of awareness, no matter how small, has the power to change your destiny. And I want to tell you something important. This does not mean allowing abuse. It does not mean always staying silent or becoming passive. No. Peace is not forced silence. Peace is loving firmness. Peace is knowing when to speak, how to speak, and from where to speak. It is being able to say, I do not agree.
It is being able to set a boundary without shouting, without attacking. It is being able to walk away without hatred, resentment, or bitterness. Karl Jung would say, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." And that includes your anger, your reactions, those moments when you feel like you cannot take it anymore. Because the soul is not purified only in the temple or in meditation. It is purified in the middle of the storm. It is purified when someone provokes you and you choose not to surrender to the impulse. It is purified when someone lies to you and you choose not to carry that poison. It is purified when someone disappoints you and you choose to keep walking without closing your heart to life. And that is when everything changes. That is when you begin living from choice instead of reaction. That is when you stop fighting with the world because you are no longer at war with yourself. That is when other people lose their power over you. Not because they do not matter, but because you have decided that your peace matters more than your pride. And that is a revolutionary act, a sacred act. Think about this. How many important moments in your life have been ruined by anger? How many relationships were damaged? How many hurtful things did you say that later made you think, "I wish I could take that back"? How many nights did you spend with guilt or anxiety because you could not hold back one reaction? You are not alone. We have all been there. We all carry marks. But now you have a map. You have tools. You have awareness. And that is priceless. Now imagine your life from this new place. Imagine being able to move through conflict without feeling attacked. Imagine listening to someone who disagrees with you without losing your center. Imagine saying, "I do not deserve this," without anger, just with clarity. Imagine living every day knowing that no one in the world can steal your peace unless you hand it over. That is what you are building. It is not perfect, it is not instant, and it is not easy. But it is your path.
And I want to repeat something essential to you. You are not trying to never feel anger again. You are learning not to let anger rule you. You are learning that every emotion has a message. Every discomfort is an opportunity. And every person who provokes you may be awakening a part of you that wants to grow. And when you begin to look at the world this way, you do not get wounded in the same way anymore, because you are not the same anymore. So every time you feel like you are about to explode, come back to this message. Listen again when anger starts taking over, when you feel like you cannot hold it anymore. Because every time you return, you will remember that there is a place inside you that nothing and no one has power over. That place is yours. That place is your soul. And that is where true freedom lives. Thank you for being here until the end. If something deep moved inside you, write it in the comments. Tell me what emotion touched you, what lesson stayed with you. Quiet Psychology was made for you, and every time you comment, share, or subscribe, you are planting new consciousness in the world. And always remember this. In a world that constantly wants you to react, your greatest power is learning to respond with peace. You have reached the end of this journey, but what begins now is even deeper. This is a new chapter in your life, a chapter where you will not suppress your anger, but you also will not let it control you. A chapter where conflict is no longer an enemy, but a quiet teacher. A chapter where you no longer react from the wound, but respond from the soul. Karl Jung taught that true change does not happen by fighting our emotions, but by giving them space to be seen, understood, and transformed. And that transformation does not happen all at once. It happens every day, in small things, in invisible moments, in what no one else sees.
Every time you choose not to say the thing that would wound, every time you decide not to answer that message in anger, every time you step back instead of speaking what your ego wants to shout, you are rebuilding yourself. So what I want to give you now is not a perfect formula you must follow flawlessly. It is a path to accompany you when you feel lost again, when you feel like you have fallen back, when it seems like no progress has been made. The first practice is presence. We live distracted. We spend the day answering notifications, rushing after time, reacting to everything as if everything were urgent. And do you know what happens when you live distracted? You cannot choose. Because real choice can only come from consciousness. So every time you feel that something or someone is triggering your anger, stop. Breathe. Literally take 3 deep breaths without checking your phone, without speaking, without doing anything else. Just be with yourself. That is presence. That is returning home. And when you do this, you send a powerful message to your nervous system. I am safe. I do not need to attack. I can handle this. And slowly, what used to make you explode will no longer have the same power. Not because the world changed, but because you stopped being its prisoner. The second practice is inner language. If you knew how toxic your inner dialogue can be, you would understand why anger has so much power over you. It is not only what other people say to you, it is what you secretly say to yourself. This always happens to me. People always take advantage of me. No one respects me. These kinds of sentences feed the fire. They are emotional gasoline. And the worst part is, most of the time you do not even say them out loud. You only think them, but your body hears them and reacts accordingly. So today, I invite you to change your inner dialogue. I'm not asking you to use empty phrases or fake positivity. I am asking you to choose your words consciously and to learn to speak to yourself the way you would speak to someone you love. When you make a mistake, say, I am learning. When you feel anger, say, this is a part of me, but it does not define me. When you feel like you are about to explode, remind yourself, I can choose another way. At first, this inner shift is invisible, but over time it becomes a tremendous force that supports you in hard moments. The third practice is the mirror, and this is one of the hardest and most powerful practices of all. Karl Jung said that everything that irritates us in others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. That does not mean everything others do is your fault. It means that what moves you most deeply on an emotional level has roots inside you. If someone makes you feel unimportant, maybe there is a part of you that already feels unworthy. If someone ignores you, maybe there is an untouched wound of abandonment. If someone's authority fills you with anger, maybe there is a part of you that has felt small for years. And this is where the real transformation begins. Because once you see that, you stop placing your power outside yourself. You stop looking for someone to blame. You stop trying to change the other person, and instead you ask, what part of me needs attention, love, validation, or rest right now? In that moment, you become your own therapist, your own guide, your own safe place. You do not need to have all the answers. You only need the willingness to look. Sometimes that alone is enough for healing to begin. The fourth practice is conscious silence. Not the silence of fear, but the silence of someone who has found a place within that is deeper than words. Jung believed the soul needs moments of retreat to digest what it lives, to process emotions, and to integrate what it learns.
And today we are full of noise, not only outside, but inside. Opinions, judgments, comparisons, expectations.
All of it pulls us away from peace. So I want to suggest something simple but powerful. Give yourself 5 minutes of silence every day. No distractions, no tasks, just you with yourself. You can close your eyes. You can place your hand on your chest. You can simply observe your breathing. The technique is not what matters. The intention is what matters. Those 5 minutes can become your refuge, and little by little, when the world provokes you, your mind will know how to return there. And from there, you will be able to respond with wisdom instead of impulse. The fifth practice is forgiveness, but not in the way we usually understand it. It is not about pretending everything was okay, and it is definitely not about justifying what hurt you. Jung pointed to a deeper form of forgiveness, the kind that is born when you understand that people often hurt you, not from fullness, but from unconsciousness, from their own wounds, from unresolved trauma. And when you truly see that, something inside you softens. Not because you approve of the harm, but because you decide not to keep carrying it. Forgiveness is not forgetting. It is releasing the anchor. It is stopping the endless return to what you cannot change. It is looking forward without dragging resentment behind you. Because in the end, as Jung said, what you deny controls you, but what you accept transforms you. And forgiveness, at its core, is accepting that you cannot go back, but you can choose how you move forward. And so, day by day, minute by minute, you begin to build a new relationship with anger, not as an enemy, but as a signal, not as something that owns you, but as something you can observe, not as a shadow to deny, but as a part of you that also deserves light. Yes, there will be days when you feel like you have fallen back, days when you shout, lose control, or forget everything you have learned. That too is part of the process. Do not punish yourself for being imperfect. Thank yourself for continuing. Because every attempt is a victory over the old self. Every time you choose calm, even for 1 second, you are breaking generations of reactivity, inherited wounds, invisible chains. This is not an easy path, but it is the only path that leads to real freedom. Not external freedom, the kind that depends on circumstances, but inner freedom, the kind no one can take from you. And I want to close with an image. Imagine yourself as a tree rooted deeply into the ground. The wind may move the leaves and bend the branches, but it cannot rip you from the earth. Why? Because you are rooted in yourself. And that is what you are doing here. You have planted the seed of a new consciousness, a new way of living, a more mature, more loving, more truthful way of being. And in time, that seed will bear fruit. Fruit that others will see. Fruit that others will taste. Because people do not change when you tell them what to do. They change when they see that you have changed. And that may become one of the greatest gifts you offer to the world. Thank you for staying until the end. Thank you for opening yourself to this message. Thank you for wanting to become a better version of yourself, not to please anyone, not to fit in, but because your soul knows it deserves more than a life driven by anger. If this message touched you, let me know in the comments. Tell me what part transformed you most and which practice you will begin applying from today. Your experience may inspire someone else. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, share it with them. Let these words reach the place where they are most needed. And if you want more content like this, subscribe to Quiet Psychology. But above all, take care of yourself. Protect your peace. Protect your energy. Because when you are truly well, everything around you begins to change. And always remember this: you are not your emotions. You are not your reactions. You are the space in which all of them can be transformed.
And that space is sacred.